So a little break from the white Supra to take care of the blue Supra. So currently the blue Supra has potentially a failed O-ring for the water pump. We're just going to replace the water pump altogether. It's the original water pump that came with this motor, so probably better to do that, as well as change out the current fan setup. So this is a 16-inch spall fan. It works really well. It's proven on the white car. There's a lot of people that run this same setup on these JZ cars, but I really want to go back to clutch fan because I want to drive this car a little bit more, just locally and streetwise. Everybody says, you know, electric fans are, you know, proven tried and true, and it's a low horsepower just driver, and I want to go back to clutch fan. Easy as that. But you cannot run a clutch fan setup and a big radiator, a big aluminum radiator like this, with the factory 1JZ water pump, because the shaft for the pulley sticks way too far out, and it's, I don't know if you can see, but it's really close to part of that fan, part of the fan shroud for where the actual fan is being held together. It's hard to see, but right there, it's a little close. So like many do, a 2JZ water pump is going on this car. That kit with some other extra parts that I bought, and then timing belt. We're in there, we might as well do it. Don't me! Because I was slacking, Dad hit up Pedro, and Pedro was like, all right, I'm coming over, we're getting some stuff moving on this. So him and I worked on this a little bit, and water pump is off. So water pump's off. Cam gears are off. We're gonna go ahead and replace the cam seals while we're at it. I did not order those, didn't even think about it, but it makes sense to. We got the timing belt and everything off, might as well do it. That thing is a bear to get off when you leave the turbo stuff on. Getting that lower bolt off of there is a little difficult. So the best thing to do is run an extension behind the manifold and along the side of that, and you can get it off. But water pump's off. Also, dampener is off. So we're gonna be replacing the crank seal as well. Get this thing all sealed up so it you know, doesn't have any future issues, some, you know, preventative maintenance and whatnot. This up is from a company called like Dark Matter something. It's pretty cool. It fits in between the cam gears when you want to break some stuff loose, or if you want to leave the cam gears in place for doing a timing belt. Pretty cool. At first we were like, it's not lining up. You just got to move the cam gears a little bit and then it'll line right up. So that's pretty cool. Been dealing with issues with the stereo and the antenna being kind of wonky with this old unit. So kept the speakers, because they're massive and nothing wrong with them, and hooked them up with a new-ish head unit. Got a little antenna and cables for him to hook his Spotify into if he wants to. I got these because, you know, tired of having towels that you eventually get dirt in or metal in or something. So I got these covers for the fenders and front. And dude, it covers a lot of real estate. Surprisingly, I mean, you have this one open gap right here, but for the most part, I mean, you could probably overlap some of that stuff too if you really wanted to. But yeah, pretty cool. They got magnets in here to hold on to stuff. They're like sewed in, and then you have hooks. The hooks I'll primarily hold it just from slipping off, and then the magnets are just extra. But yeah, pretty cool. I'm not sponsored, but they're from Eastwood. They're like $27 for the set, and honestly, it's worth it, especially if you just got your car painted like I did and do not want to scratch it. And super soft material underneath. It's like a microfiber soft material, so won't scratch the paint or anything just sitting on it. Okay, we've got an update for you on the 1JZ blue Supra, and we are changing everything. That's just kind of how it goes. So originally I tore this down to take the water pump off, replace it with a new water pump, painted the water pump, make it look good. Obviously we did timing belt, as you can see, cam seals and stuff. Suspect engineering, my boy Pedro, and obviously my dad, been helping out a lot with this thing. Pedro's got way more knowledge with some of this stuff, so he's kind of carrying us through this process, which is cool. And we're not just changing the water pump now, so obviously that, cam seals, front main seal. Now we're deciding to mess with the radiator setup. Tuck some more wiring, made it look a little bit nicer, some heat wrap, make sure I don't ground nothing out. And now that everything is together, I can give you kind of a quick overview of what we were able to do. Looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. I trimmed a little bit too much the top of the fan shroud. You can kind of see it, but no big deal. Big aluminum radiator, clutch fan setup, 1JZ VVTi. If you look at where a 2JZ sits in the engine bay of a Mark III Supra, same frame mounts, same frame to motor mounts, sorry. If you look at where the end of the timing cover is on a 2JZ, for whatever reason, probably the frame positioning for the motor mount positioning for 1J and a 2J may be a little bit different. There's probably something I don't know. But if you look at it on my 2J car, the front of where the timing is right here is like way further back. It's like here. I was comparing it to where the fuse box is in a 2J or in a Mark III Supra, and that's the factory location, both of my cars. I looked at pictures, and the timing location, for whatever reason, right here lines up perfectly with that, but on a 2JZ is like way back here. So you have way more clearance for a clutch fan, and we didn't have to trim the clutch fan. We didn't have to do any modifications. It had a GTE clutch, or GE clutch, GTE clutch fan, and had no modifications done other than trimming the inside of the shroud a little bit. Well, we went a little overboard with trimming everything, but honestly, for good measures, when the fan spreads and it does all that stuff, now we have clearance from our water neck. And then we also have clearance down below from a couple of other things that it could potentially hit. None of the pulleys are in the way. The shroud is also really close on the inside compared to the GTE fan. The GE fan sticks out a little bit further, which is nice. But then you run into that issue where it hits the water neck. So you have to trim not only the inside of this, the top of it, and then some of the other side of the fan right here where you can see my middle finger's at. You got to trim this off as well so it doesn't hit the top of the shroud, which I trimmed out a lot of the shroud. And then same thing down below, had to trim the lower part of the shroud as well. So this is one of my old shrouds, untouched. So I'll use this as an example for what you kind of end up having to trim. You trim almost about 1.5 inches up here, and then all the way across, right, to about right here. Just kind of take where the fan lines up with it, take some tape like a little marker, mark there and there. And then same thing down here. I ended up just cutting a lot of this off. So basically like my finger thickness is where you want to start down, and just that's all you want to keep about the finger's thickness right there. I like to keep the 90-degree angle that's a part of this piece, just to keep for like structure so it's not super flimsy and stuff. And then all of this top part of it just cut out. I cut this little tab out as well. And then just to make sure that the shroud wouldn't go into the fan at all, I did add a bunch of holes on the side of the shroud. So here, up here somewhere, and then the same side here and here on like this flat piece, I added a hole, kind of like where you see that's there. But to get a little bit more meat out of a zip tie with a bigger zip tie instead of these little ones, I added bigger holes here with a thicker zip tie than these little tiny ones. And then I zip tied it into the actual radiator itself on the side. Sometimes they'll have these little holes, and went through those. Did that to keep the shroud from like separating from the fan. Just showing a quick example of out of the car. But it should be good. Here's that example real quick. Forgot I could totally just show you. So yeah, that just to hold on to them, hold on the shroud a little bit better. It does have the bolts in it, so it's got a bolt up here. I had to trim out this hole a little bit. These aluminum radiators, they're not all built the same, so sometimes you got to be a little bit more customizable when it comes to fitting this stuff. That's got a washer and lock washer on it. Washer and lock washer on this one as well. And then it's got 4 zip ties all the way at the bottom, and then the tabs at the bottom. Let me see if I can show you those. So phone will be sideways for a little bit, but right there, Right there you can see, I just bent those tabs in. This one did come on this Northern radiator that we bought. It did have these little tabs for it to fit in. It doesn't fit super perfect, but I drilled out the holes a little bigger in the, or no, the holes in the plastic I left alone, but I did have to drill holes into this little metal tab here and then just put a big zip tie through it so that this would just kind of hold steady. I really don't want the shroud moving because it'll get under that fan and it'll just make a mess. I've already been there, don't want to be there again. Give you a quick look at where that fan shroud is also trimmed. You can see right there, a lot of it's trimmed out on the inside. I'll give you kind of a good idea of what you need to trim and how high up you need to go. But yeah, and then as you can see, we have a lot better clearance there with that fan and that shroud. It's a little closer. It looks very factory. My dad's friend Al, my friend Al, he was able to trim it up on every single blade and make it look very nice and factory, so it should still be functional and not affect the structural integrity, but it did a really good job. It's mostly just customized related things. There is another solution to this that I was reading online. There's a guy that is running a 7M GTE clutch and a 2JZ, or no, not a 2JZ, a Toyota Tacoma, like from the 2.7 liter 4-cylinder model that they've been making for a while. That fan will work on this setup, and it requires very minimal trimming from what I could tell in the forum that I looked at. The only downside with that option is that clutch, you got to run like washers and spacers on the backside of it, and it leaves bolts exposed. He's raced it and tracked it like that and had no problems, but we just strayed away from it and we went ahead and just got the 2JZ GE set up, and it's obviously working out fine and being able to trim it. But that's another option for other people that want to explore something else. Yeah, just a quick update. The car is back together. Everything runs. The fan does not hit at all. Obviously, turning it 6,500 RPM is going to let us know if we end up having any more issues. That fan will like spread a little bit, but it's a brand new fan, so shouldn't spread too much. It's not worn out. The clutch is a little worn out, so we might end up having to replace that in the future anyways. But yeah, it works, so we're good to go. Next thing is clutch master cylinder. That bad boy is definitely leaking. It's got no fluid in it, so we're replacing that with a Driftmotion Willwood kit, and we are also swapping out slave cylinder because you might as well do both at the same time. Preventative maintenance, because we might drive this thing a little far. We're thinking about a trip, so some preventative maintenance for that. And last thing, of course, I'm really happy to go back to clutch fan. I don't mind electric fan. Obviously, we still have that set up for the white Supra. It's a little bit more race car-esque, and this one's a little bit more, I want to drive it on the street, be able to daily it, drive it far distances. I think the feeling of having a clutch fan is just a little bit more comfortable. I don't have to worry about it as much. So we went back to it. I've always had a clutch fan on this car, and then we went to an electric fan, popped some fuses on me. It left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, so you know what? Clutch fan, street car, it doesn't make a lot of horsepower. We might as well just do it this way. I feel better about it. Also, being temperature controlled and not via the ECU where you can change what temperature you want it to be controlled by. This one was all just based off of stock system for what these fans come with, whereas this one specifically works with the ECU. This is not on a standalone. This is on stock ECU, whereas this setup in the white car, we have the Motec, so we're able to control where we want that to turn on, how long we want it to turn on for, and what temperatures and whatnot. So a little bit more controllability, whereas this, you have no control. We put the sensor in up here in the water neck. We have the sensor in the water neck now, which this is the way to go. The other way, we had it here, and I think a lot of that temperature changing or the temperature sensing was steam and not actual submerged water, which was causing that electric fan setup to kick on later than it really should have been. So yeah, that was also a problem. Don't put the sensors here, put them in the water neck. way easier that way and more accurate readings. So if you can see, also we do have our 2 sensors right there. So your factory style sensors for the ECU and for your factory gauge are there. So we have that functionally and working. A lot of people will eliminate the gauge to get a aftermarket gauge in there, the factory one, and you can do that 100%. That's not a problem. But what we did is we just added a bung fitting to the water neck, and then that's got our aftermarket gauge in there as well. So now we have all 3. So ECU, factory gauge works still, and then you've got your fancy what do I have? Innovation gauge. So we touched on getting this done, this clutch fan setup done, and a couple of the other miscellaneous things that kind of went along with it. The next thing that I basically said we were talking about was the clutch master cylinder and the slave cylinder. So stock slave cylinder, Driftmotion master cylinder. Here is that clutch master cylinder. It's got a billet cap on top. Pretty cool. Is it billet? Yeah, it's billet. Billet cap on top. You can see there we got some fluid in there already. And is that going on? No, I'm putting that on crooked. Come on, there we go. And then I believe this is a cast piece from like Willwood. And then a billet mount adapter on the back side here. Super nice. Came with a line. With your boot right there that I just realized is scrunched up, and I gotta, undo that a little bit. And your adjustment rod right there comes with a pin and a cotter pin. I used the factory cotter pin that I had on there before. I just like those swirly ones a little bit better, but you can use the one that it comes with. It'll work as well. And then we've got our brand new slave cylinder on there. I think that was the problem. But real quick, our little bit of travel pedal feels really good. But yeah, that feels so much better than what it did before. I'm pretty stoked about it. So I don't know if there's any left in here, any fluid left in here, but when I was just kind of plunging this out, I was trying to plunge out the fluid so it wouldn't leak all over the place into like a pan or whatever. When I was doing that, it was leaking out the front side of this. So right there in the front of that. Let's see if we can get it to, I don't think there's much in there, but yeah, it was pushing out of the boot and I could feel it coming out of the boot right here. So I was like, oh, that was our problem. Because when I pulled this car into the back shop, this thing was completely out of fluid, that clutch master cylinder empty. So if we were to do any long trips, I'm glad I replaced that and the slave cylinder as well. Probably could have gotten away with staying with this, but there's a little bit of like surface rust area stuff down here, so I don't know. It could have been leaking as well, but yeah, preventative maintenance, and it's a nicer piece, and pedal feels great. Next is my favorite thing to do on this car, the oil. And as you can see right there, we have our K&N filter that I only use on this car because I've got a little 1-inch wrench that fits on the nut end of that. And literally it's so much easier with this instead of doing like any other type of oil filter removal wrenches. I know we're not supposed to like over tighten them. I usually go hand tight and then maybe like a turn or so with this to not go crazy, but enough to make sure it is secure. That's why I only run those, just because this makes it so much easier to come off. Part number is HP1002. You know we only use Castrol high mileage 1040 out here. I use this in the 1J and the 2J, the race car and the street car. And so far so good. Good oil pressure, especially in hot temperatures. I've had absolutely no problems. Dad is thinking about trying something else. We were talking about that the other day, so we'll see how that goes. Unless Castrol wants that sponsor, what? Yeah, I talked about these a little while ago. They're pretty neat. Well, I didn't really have anywhere to put this little thin hook. Oh, that just popped off. But Dad put together these little aluminum pieces and just kind of holds on to that. And then if I like straighten this out a little bit, it'll probably snug up on there. What a great, sorry Dad. Also, some wire management, because you know how I am with that. I love my zip ties. And when I'm gonna make it some nice and neat stuff, I gotta get in there and change some stuff around. And just getting into that oil filter is just like the absolute worst with all the stuff down there. And then this thing doesn't help. But it is nice to have the factory one. Those are hard to get. And you want to make sure your oil filter gasket's nice and lubed up, so you just got to give it a good old, no mess, no spraying brake clean on everything, just put it in a bag. Save the environment. And just like that, we're back. Woo! Temp's looking good with the new clutch fan. Oil pressure looking good after some maintenance. Woo! And like that, the car is back up and running. So took it around the block, got up to about 194. And so temps look good, oil pressure looked good. Just topped it off with some oil. Obviously got some heat in the motor. It showed full with 5 quarts of oil. Got some heat in the motor, filled the turbo lines, and then all of a sudden it's half on the oil reading measurement thing. You know what I mean? In between the dots, basically. So filled it back up. So now that it's hot, turbo lines are full, filter's full, everything should be good to go. Now time to put it to the ultimate test. Obviously, we didn't have any issues with the fan shroud running around, but gotta turn it, $7 grand. Obviously, we're going to a Cars and Coffee event, so that'll be the ultimate test for how this thing, ultimately does. Funny thing is, I was driving down the road and heard like a ting, 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 and I got super scared, but luckily it was just the line wrench that I left on the slave cylinder. Luckily, the slave cylinder was tight, the bleeder valve, but yeah, I left this hanging on it, funny enough. You gotta be careful, can't be rushing sometimes.